Good evening. I would like to call to order the Kaiser City Council for Monday, October 16th, 2017, and ask our city recorder to please call roll.
Councilor Ryan?
Here.
Councilor Freeman?
Here.
Councilor Reed?
Here.
Mayor Clark?
Here.
Council President Parsons?
Here.
Councilor Herrera?
Here.
Councilor Anderson?
Here.
And Youth Councilor Hernandez?
Here.
Thank you very much. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all very much. Tonight, under special orders of business, it is my pleasure to welcome back some good friends of the city and some fantastic people who do good work for people in our community. This is for a proclamation for Domestic Violence Awareness Month, and I would like to invite our District Attorney, Walt Beglow, Kim Larson, also from the District Attorney's Office, and Jane Downing from the Center of Hope and Safety, come on down, and talk about the work that is being done, and then I'll be happy to read the proclamation, which I have signed, and make that presentation. Thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Mayor Clark, members of the council, Chief, my name's Walt Beglow. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having us back. I want to acknowledge that Kaiser has always been a strong partner with us and alongside us as we've addressed the issues of domestic violence within our communities, and particularly in October when we're trying to highlight National Domestic Violence Awareness Month. Joining me again tonight, and Mayor Clark may remind me, we missed a year, I think. We try and go out to different communities, and the mayor cornered me and said, we want you every year in Kaiser, talking with us and sending this message around domestic violence. And I've never been asked that before by any community, so we feel pretty special to be here. It's wonderful to have Jane here from the Center for Hope and Safety, and Kim Larson from our Victim Assistance. We have teamed up for years, virtually my entire tenure as district attorney, trying to get out the word that domestic violence continues to be a prevailing and tragic crime within all of our communities, day in and day out. It is so prevalent in our communities across this nation and in Marion County that I have an entire team of deputy district attorneys solely dedicated to manage over 1,000 cases of violence referred to our office every single year from all of our communities here in Marion County. And these range from shoving and pushing and misdemeanor behaviors all the way to murder. And with very deep respect to the city of Kaiser and this community, that violence is no stranger. We dealt tragically with the family of Lisa Zielinski, and as we all know, that case is now back in the court system, and I want to extend my respect and support to the community here as we work our way through that case again through our court system in a just and fair way. We've met with the families. We've reached out to them. They are very aware of the status of the case, and we will continue to connect closely with them as we do this again. And I just wanted to share that we are fully committed to accountability in that matter on behalf of the District Attorney's Office. I guess that case is a very grim reminder that not all survivors of domestic violence survive. And unfortunately, we need to have a continuous and unrelenting dialogue in our community around violence within families. And we need to inspire our community to take ownership over that. And that's why it's so important that Jane and Kim and members of our community team up and just have this really important conversation. And that's why we're here tonight, to try and continue that dialogue within our families and our friends, recognize that this is real, this is not something we cannot address as a community and as a nation. And so we want to be the point of that spear alongside our communities in that conversation. So I'm pleased again to have Jane here with us. I'm just very proud of the fact that we can have our local community, our nonprofit response to families, women who are survivors of domestic violence, and the district attorney's office and all the other partners working in one direction around violence. I looked at the cases referred from Kaiser, and out of the report is submitted to the district attorney's office, we have a 79% filing rate, which is an extraordinary rate, I would say to you. So what that means is that the chief and his investigators are doing a great job submitting finished cases, well prepared and investigated cases, and then our office can move forward and get to that one level of accountability. So we've got some really good work going on, and I know that you've hosted some trainings here in Kaiser as well, and so we're very pleased about that as well. So thank you for that, Chief. I'm going to shift to Jane and have her visit a little bit with you as well, if that's okay, Mayor.
Please do. Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor, City Councilor, and members of the public. Jane Downing with the Center for Hope and Safety, and I just am honored to come back and speak with you all here. I think you do an incredible job of drawing awareness to these issues and also staying engaged around it. I think you are the only city council, and I know you have some new members that haven't had a chance to do this, but I believe you're the only ones that have ever come and went on a tour together, and I just commend you for that. I think that's incredible. And for those of you that haven't been able to do it, come on down. I'd love to give you a personal tour of our center and what we do and how we do it. For those of you who don't know, we provide a 24-hour crisis line in English and Spanish. We also do use the language line so we can talk to folks in 140 different languages. Some new information for folks. We just opened a brand new shelter this year. Our shelter had been operating in the same location for 39 years. It had housed 15,887 children and adults in those years. And so we were very happy to do a really quiet campaign to raise the funds to be able to open up a new shelter after all those years. Ours was kind of worn out. And so we have been operating in the new shelter, and our next project that's connected with that shelter is we're actually starting to raise funds to open kennels on site. So we hope to reduce another barrier for people coming to us by being able to bring their animals with them when they come into our safe shelter. So we just started that process, so you're getting some of that news before a lot of the community, that's going to be the next thing that we're going to do. We opened a advocacy office in downtown Salem, and we didn't understand really how important that was. In the first year, we doubled the number of people walking in from our old office, and in our second year, we doubled again. We had over 22,000 contacts to our program last year, and that's all kinds: walking in, coming into shelter, coming to our support groups that are in English and Spanish in Salem and in Woodburn. We have free childcare for all of those. Emailing us, Facebooking us. However, we try to really have no wrong door. And we train anywhere from 7,000 to 10,000 people every year on these issues, and we do all of that for free. And one of the most important pieces about our work is having those community connections. And so working with local police departments, the chief has had me come in and talk with his officers, and I really appreciate that. Working with the Victim Assistance Office. And I do, before I stop talking, I just want to say this is going to be the last go around for me to be able to go with Walt to these different communities. And I hope you all know the position that he has taken on domestic violence has made a huge difference, and I have just been really honored to go on these with Walt and with Kim as we go to different community members. And that really sets a tone. You probably don't know this, but in many communities, the district attorney's office and the local nonprofit actually don't even speak to one another. And so we have worked and built a really strong relationship. And one of the great things is we actually share an advocate together now. And I think that might be one of the few places in Oregon that actually does that. And that says a lot about the district attorney's office and the victim assistance office and their willingness to work with those nonprofit folks in the community. So after we're done, I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have, but I'm going to turn it over to Kim.
Good evening. We know that the discussion of domestic violence is a pretty sobering topic, but we wanted to also highlight for you some of the efforts that we've made to try to fill some of the gaps that we've identified in our community. One of those being training and reaching out into our community. We've done a lot of work in the last year and a half to enhance our protocol training with law enforcement officers and make sure that they're trained in how to do investigations and reporting so that those cases are submitted to the DA's office and in a way that makes them very prosecutable. We worked really closely with Lieutenant Copeland with Kaiser Police Department, and he was really instrumental in helping us facilitate these trainings. We held some of them here, and he also has presented at all of those trainings, and so they played a really pivotal role in that. We've also reached out into the faith community and done a lot of training with our faith leaders. We know that survivors who are looking for help, if they're engaged with their faith community, that's where they want to go for help. And so we wanted to make sure that those leaders had the tools necessary to be able to respond and to talk about the resources in our community. Another area that we've really strengthened, Jane talked about, is really shoring up what we're doing with victims and survivors who are seeking restraining orders. And so we share an advocate, and her role is to focus on restraining orders. She attends hearings every single day, so now there is an advocate present at every restraining order hearing to safety planning and talk with resources with people. We also now have worked with our courts to allow people to appear by video when they have a contested hearing. So they have that option to be able to not be in the courtroom with their offender when their restraining order is being contested. Those are really big safety measures that we've been able to accomplish within our community. And probably the third thing that I would talk about is our advocacy within the juvenile dependency process. A lot of us victims and survivors find that they're also engaged with Department of Human Services, child welfare, and trying to shore up a safe and stable home for their kids. And so we have an advocate that works specifically within that realm to help them accomplish that safe and stable home at a much quicker rate so that they're able to get their kids returned back to them and have a safe home for those kids to be in. So we wanted to just take a minute to highlight those things for you so you know that we are working within the community and are invested in trying to improve our response in the community.
Well, thank you very much, Councilor Ryan.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, all three of you, for all the work that you do all the time. Jane, I think you're at 20 years, aren't you? Aren't we? Yeah.
Yeah, I just had an anniversary.
I thought
so,
you did. Yeah, congratulations. My question to you would be.
I was a baby.
I know. And I must have been also because I remember that day. So, and thank you again. But I guess I'm curious what the need is, obviously, other than money, because, you know, if we could all write a check, we would. But what are your needs at the new location? Are we needing toiletries? Are we needing ladies' clothes? What do you need?
I would tell you right now, one of the biggest needs that we have is umbrellas.
Really?
Yes, we, as the rains come on, we gave out every umbrella that we had, and so we know that we have none to be able to give out for more folks who come into shelter, and we just had a couple more come in today. So umbrellas is a big one. Alarm clocks to be able to go. They need to get up to be able to go to work and that sort of thing, and so alarm clocks are always a need. Larger size diapers. We do well with getting the 1s and 2s and 3s, but 4s, 5s, and 6s, and pull-ups. Those are difficult for us. So those are some of the big ones. A group at the state of Oregon in the IT department just did they built towers out of toilet paper and then gave us all the toilet paper. They didn't take them out of the packages, but with the packages, they made these incredible towers. And so we have toilet paper. I always say to folks, if you want to see folks really excited, bring us paper towels or toilet papers. Toilet paper right now, we're good on toilet paper, but bring us paper towels. So thank you for asking that.
Well, thank you so much. There's several people who will support you in that, I'm sure.
Thank you.
Including myself. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions before I read the proclamation? Whereas the impact of domestic violence extends beyond individuals, reaching into families and communities. And whereas in the last year, Marion County has experienced 2 domestic violence homicide crimes resulting in the deaths of 5 victims, 3 of whom were children. And whereas the Marion County District Attorney's Office received 1,144 law enforcement reports of domestic violence last year, filed 882 domestic violence cases, and filed 42 juvenile dependency cases with domestic violence allegations. And whereas the Marion County courts received 755 requests for protective orders last year. And whereas the Center for Hope and Safety received 22,167 contacts to their program last year and provided 3,702 nights of shelter, with nearly half of those sheltered being children. And whereas the Marion County Victim Assistance Division provided services to 1,175 victims of domestic violence last year, walking alongside them and giving them a voice in the criminal justice process. And whereas we know as individuals we can make a difference by speaking up and reaching out to help victims and survivors. Now therefore I, Kathy Clark, the Mayor of the City of Kaiser, State of Oregon, do hereby proclaim the month of October 2017 as Domestic Violence Awareness Month, and resolve to honor those who have died and acknowledge those who have survived by supporting meaningful services that create safety and hope for survivors in our community. In witness whereof, I have hereunto set my hand and caused the seal of the City of Kaiser to be set this day, October 16th, 2017. Thank you so much for your works. Thank you. So good to see you. I still have that video, by the way. I'm going to repost it. So this is for you all. And thank you so
Thank you
much.
again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
There is a video on KaiserTV.com that Kim and Jane made several years ago and is just as relevant right now as it was then, dispelling the myths and highlighting the facts, the basics about domestic violence. I'm going to put a link on my Facebook page, but I encourage people to go there. I believe it is still on the page, and it is a fabulous way to introduce people to what the realities are with domestic violence. So we're going to get that back out there. Thank you again. So we're going to go on now to committee reports. And we have one tonight, and that is an update on our parks from Mr. Lawyer, Matt Lawyer. And, oh, are we going to flip for it? We have 3 members of the Parks Board here, with Kat Gaynor and Dave Loudon, chair.
We brought the big guns with us with the
Okay.
chair, just in case.
So we have Matt and Kat.
That's a rhyme, in the nick of time. For the record, Matt Lawyer, Kaiser Parks Advisory Board, Kaiser citizen. Welcome, Youth Councilor Hernandez. Excited to have you here, and first time I've gotten the opportunity to see you. Madam Mayor, members of council, staff, good evening. I'm going to turn it over to Kat. She's going to get us going, and then we'll we'll do this thing.
I'm Kat Gaynor, City of Kaiser resident. on the Parks Board. So last week we met and talked about the smoking in the city parks, and there was discussion going back and forth. We ended up coming to the conclusion that we wanted to recommend to the council to create a designated smoking area for the use of tobacco products, including e-cigarettes and vaping, in Kaiser Parks.
So, back to me. That was the ultimate decision. It did volley. We had an original recommendation of a ban that was denied. So it's a little bit nebulous, and that's the recommendation from the Parks Board for now. And we'll see what the outcome of that might be from staff. But the moment I'm sure you're all waiting for, in front of you, you will have this piece of paper. Yours is not pink and yellow. My toner ran out. It is, I think, if I remember right, green and blue, but I apologize. But this is the, yes, green and blue. So, gosh, a number of months ago, I sat in front of you and we talked about the Parks Dedicated Fund, and I set a really ambitious goal of having something by the end of October, and by way of a recommendation. I think we're pretty close to that, although we, in our haste, didn't recognize the need for staff to be able to come back with all of the information. And so we don't have a final recommendation of the priorities for you. We have at least the data points for which we are making this conversation happen. The objective is clear on this. I don't need to read it for you. I do want to talk a little bit about the two phases. The PPC, or the Parks Prioritization Committee, has been ongoing since the first part of September. We've had at least 2 individual meetings plus 2 work sessions, so to speak, within the Parks Advisory Board. This has been taking the information that you see on the back part of the page, which is a variety of different parks and different options, and then the information from the survey, and marrying it together into a sort of a scorable prioritization list. The next point after tonight is going to be on October 24th. We're going to be meeting, and we're going to be using input from the folks in the committee, as well as those that come to talk to us on the 24th. And we're going to get information from staff on the condition of the individual assets, 5 being the worst, 1 being the best, the type of park, whether it's community, neighborhood, or undeveloped park, and then also look at it from a safety, accessibility, resource distribution, the scope of the project. So accessibility isn't just in terms of can you get there, it's also whether or not it's ADA accessible, accessibility to socioeconomic areas throughout the city. As it mentions, we were going to hold at least 3 meetings between September 12th and the end of October. We'll actually be more close to 4, again with the 24th of the October happening. And then hopefully at our first meeting in November, the Parks Prioritization Committee will effectively take everything on the back of this list and make a prioritization recommendation to the Parks Board, which will then roll into phase 2, which will be an affirmation or adjustment of the recommendation of the Parks Prioritization Committee by the Parks Board. We'll turn the list of these items over to staff for cost analysis and tentative timelines. They'll provide us the information and the timelines. We'll hold at least 1 public session to get additional feedback on those recommendations. We'll make final adjustments and then ultimately be ready sometime in January, hopefully the first part, if not the last part of January, with that recommendation. It's important to note that replacement of items is going to take an additional level of input. So while the recommendation might come down as we're going to replace this park bench at this park, what that park bench ultimately becomes is going to be a result of that individual output. And I chose some really random project rather than specify something on here because I don't want to show any favoritism towards a project. Now, with that being said, you can't ask a guy to work on a car without tools. So it is the intent of the Parks Prioritization Committee and the Parks Advisory Board that on the back page, the immediate needs are things that just need to happen. We did not take a formal vote on it because we recognize that, again, in order to make things happen, you have to have the tools. Those tools being the 2 brand-new full-time employees, get them hired as soon as possible so we can start to get them trained through the winter and the spring and have them available to deal with, fallen trees and all those things that happen as a result of winter. But also evaluate and replace the aging equipment and vehicles. The average age of the vehicles in the park system is 15 plus years. And the equipment is not as old, but in much worse shape. There's a couple of those tractors that if you drive them, you can't walk for a couple hours after you're done because they're just they're that mature. We'll go with that. They've been maintained to the best of their ability, but the reality is, if we're going to ask the city to undertake this system-wide increase in services straight out the gate, they've got to have the tools to do it. Having tractors without employees doesn't work. Having employees without tractors doesn't work. So they go hand in hand. So again, it's the recommendation of the group that these are sort of recommendations notwithstanding. They're tools that have to happen. And frankly, the numbers on that will come out, and we'll have the final numbers. And if I need to phone a friend, I'll phone a friend on that one. But that information's going to be available soon. But the second part, or the middle, is sort of the guts of it. We do have the Meadows, Clagger Creek, Northview, Bob Newton, Chalmers Jones Gazebo, Willamette Park, Country Glen, and Ben Miller. Those all have a variety of different things or assets to be evaluated and replaced. The scores on all of those, with the exception of resurface walking paths and improve accessibility, are directly pulled from the park survey. The resurface paths and improve accessibility is really the combination of 2 scores and averaged out because they were 2 things that were specifically identified as very important. In most of these, there's 1 or 2 items. In Clagger Creek, there's 4. So we'll be looking at how to prioritize that and rank those for a recommendation. We do have a couple capital projects to look at. We have money sitting in SDCs that may be used. One of the considerations is doing the lawn down at Kaiser Rapids and completing the loop, the walking loop as it were. Maybe some benches and walking paths down at Bear Park or Palmacia and other parks, and also potentially looking at some a fence near Ben Miller. Some of the feedback has been that folks don't want to go down near there and play because it's so close to that one side street as you go down through Ben Miller, and they're just a little bit leery about that. So that was a significant concern of safety. As I hope you all are aware, we had a really great parks tour with the City Council on September 11th. As you notice, the Carlson Skate Park is in much better shape than it originally was. The work that was done, talk about maximizing the dollar, really, really good work. In fact, the young man that I talked about in this meeting, heaven knows how many months ago, was actually there, and he was really happy with the improvements. But of course, kids will, I got this candy bar, but I want 2 more. So immediately had recommendations of what to do to make it better. But that phase 1 of the project really did a good service in terms of allowing the city a little bit more time. So 6 months ago it was all doom and gloom. We're gonna have to rip it all out and start from scratch. Robert's evaluation with the folks that came in and looked at it is not so doom and gloom. In fact, we're talking about a possible redesign of the bowls only, with some transition between the 2, and then ultimately potentially resurfacing in terms of grinding the whole entire skate park down, making it as smooth as it is, and then doing long-term maintenance and some other little stuff. So good news there. I think it's going to be something that we can look at pretty soon, but definitely getting the phase 1 of that rolling in the next 12 to 24 months is going to be really important. And then lastly is the park shop. So if we want to take care of the stuff we have, Robert has recommended the possibility of adding an additional park shop somewhere in the system to help take care of those assets. We don't want to have brand new nice tractors and things that we're going to use for maintenance, not be able to take care of them or risk them being stolen or otherwise damaged. So, okay, now that I'm out of wind, So really, what we're looking for is feedback. Again, this is the talking points that we're using. My hope is that council will acknowledge the immediate needs so that we can start getting staff the resources they need to start getting this thing ready to go. And then just an additional feedback. I know Councilor Herrera, you gave me some notes on Country Glen, and I put that in there, and I'll take that to the committee as it relates to maybe some safety lights at Country Glen and possibly some other drainage issues there. And other than that, we're really looking for additional feedback. If you've got anything, if you're wholly satisfied with it, I'd like to get this on the street. So that's kind of where we're at. We can discuss this now, or if we want to continue to work through the rest of the update, and then we can come back to this, however the council pleases.
We've got questions, so I'll start with City Manager.
Sort of an immediate comment. First off, great work. You guys are doing a great job on this and really appreciate it. I mean, this is the best, most comprehensive look at our park system that's taken place in decades, and we're not that old as a city. So this is fantastic. So the one piece that I think is eventually going to have to be overlaid on this, at the next council meeting, I believe, we're going to enter into a contract to formally develop our Americans with Disabilities Act transition plan. And
Right.
part of that will be looking at all of the parks and all of the facilities and identifying things that have to take place to come into compliance, if anything. We're not positive that there are things, but there probably are some things. And so those will have to be overlaid onto this as well. We just don't know what those are yet. So, but they will have to be overlaid. It's not something that will be, should we do this or not? We will have to do them. They'll have to be placed in here. So.
Okay.
And that's it. I mean, that's the only comment that I had other than great job.
And I think there was an expectation, for example, the walking paths were going to be brought up to standard, which is ADA standard, where, right now some of them need to be replaced anyway. Will they be appropriately widened and become accessible? So I think that in the conversations and the prioritization meetings that there has been, at least my understanding, that was going to be the case. But I think it's well said that ADA compliance is going to be a given,
Yeah, and I
and
think,
accessibility.
and Madam Mayor, Mr. Epley, I think those are, the trail assessments is a portion of that, and so that's kind of really on the trail assessments piece, and maybe we can broaden that just a bit. That's more for obstructions on unfinished trails. Some of the conversation that came in is folks that are going down along Wallace House and some of those other areas where they're non-finished trails, that they've got roots or other things that are exposed, and so it's creating a potential trip hazard. And then, obviously ADA, we're not going to get the full spectrum of ADA compliance with that, but if somebody can go down in a motorized wheelchair or something because a route's been covered, then that's probably not the exact solution, but it's maybe a step towards that. And I think the accessibility portion in general is also part of the ADA discussion. But if you like, I can try to see if we can work in that ADA transition plan into some portion of this.
Yeah, I don't know that we need to actually, maybe just throw it in as a check mark or a bullet point somewhere.
Okay.
ADA compliance sort of goes without saying across the board. So,
Up at the top
yeah.
with the givens.
Where-
Comments?
We want it at the top because it has to be done.
Okay.
Yeah,
Perfect.
not
Thank
optional.
you.
Councilor Ryan?
Thank you. A question. Thanks, guys, of course, for all your hard work. And in my participation, I know you've heard me say this. I'm not clear on your list here. So one of the things we talked about was when you talk about replacing the sports courts in the couple different parks, are any of those a full basketball court?
So we're potentially, Councilor Ryan, I think right now we're about the 4,000 foot level looking at this. Where that's going to come into play, I think, is as we look at the replacement of amenities and we start to have those more specific discussions, especially on where. There's been a lot of interest from folks of redoing Claggett Creek as a larger sports court, potentially 2 full courts or 4 half courts. I guess it would be the same thing. I'm doing math in public again, but the response that we've gotten from folks who live on that street was, well, if you do that, move it because we don't want to hear it. And so, that's one of the things that we have to kind of look at in the grand scheme of it. So yes, The long answer of it is yes.
On that, I just want to make sure we're not what's that term when you kind of redo it twice? So in other words, that court that's there now, for example, if it's to be there, of course it isn't full size, it's not a spec court. So I would hate to do just fix it and then come over it again later. That would cost money, it wouldn't make sense. So I just wondered if you had a plan for that, even if it's in 4 or 5 years. I'm not asking for it now.
And I don't know that Claggett's one of those ones that can just be redone. I mean, it's one of those that's in such poor condition, it would probably have to be a total redesign and bring it up
Right.
to safety
No,
specifications.
yeah, definitely.
I mean, frankly, it's not really even accessible right now. You have to walk through 100 yards of grass before you get there. And so, yeah, I think that would be a wholesale look at that specific piece once we dive in there. And that's going to be really system-wide on all of these things. Meadows is one of those ones that just absolutely needs to be replaced. It's so old and so non-compliant for ADA standards that's really one that staff has put the exclamation point on. This has to happen. And we're getting feedback from the folks in that neighborhood that, yeah, we'd really like to see that, and we'd also like to have some input on it. And so,
Well, and that secondarily, we discussed Bear Park and the lighting. That's a huge need that the neighborhood is begging for. So I hope that we've taken that very seriously, because I've promised them that we would discuss it at length, and that I know I brought it up multiple times.
It's-
But
from the board's perspective, the rule is the park's closed at dawn, which would preclude access.
Dusk.
Excuse me, yeah, dawn, dusk, it starts with a D and the sun's around sometime. Whether it's going up or down, I don't know. I'm
gonna say
usually at
that's
work
part of the problem.
when it's dark on both ends. Thanks for the laughs, as it was. At dusk? Dusk. The parks are supposed to close at dusk, and so part of the conversation I've had with some folks that actually live in the area is when you put lights, it's sort of a double-edged sword, right? It makes it safer for people to go through, but it also invites people to go through. And so recognizing that, I don't know I think there would have to probably be some collaboration with the chief and some of his folks to see what the potential adverse impacts are. I think that erring on the side of caution, I personally would recommend lights, just simply because Bear Park is one of those parks that when you walk from point A to point B, it's super dark, and you don't know who's lurking in the dark.
well, there's a lot of criminal activity going on. There's a lot of youth using it at night and things like that. So
Yeah,
it really needs a resolution of some
And lights
kind.
has been something, it's not on this list because and maybe it deserves to be, I don't know. But I think we need to have a little bit more discussion with staff and with chief on how that would really look.
I'm all for bringing everybody on board for the conversation for sure. But I think it needs to not
Well,
put it on the
and so
list
like
somewhere.
Bear's a perfect example of an undeveloped park where it makes sense, right? Whereas Wallace House, on the other hand, it makes no sense because then you invite the urban nomads to go down and make camp down in the underbrush and stuff. So it's is it a one size fits all theory, or is it park by park?
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Herrera?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thanks again, Matt, for all your work. I apologize, I missed the last week, but I had a conflict. But I've watched you guys put this together, and what I like is that you've actually listened to people. How do you not hear me?
The television people want to be able to hear you,
You
too.
actually listen to people, and that's what I really like. And the next meeting is when is the next meeting for input?
October the 24th.
Yeah, I wanted to double check, thank you, it was right. I wanted to make sure that people know about that now that we're on TV, because like I told the people at the West Kaiser Neighborhood Association, if the people come that know their parks, you guys really listen, because I see all this stuff, and I do like the emphasis on safety. When you repair playground equipment, the walking paths, there's a lot of safety. I mean, it's gonna be so much safer and better. And as far as equipment goes, I'm a big proponent of having good, new, updated equipment.
Right.
Because from experience, now that we'll have the resources to have more bodies, the frequency of the mowing will get there, and that will lengthen the wear and tear on equipment and so many other things. You'll see how it's going to come together, and it's so wonderful. The last thing I wanted to emphasize one more time was that meeting, because like I told the people at the Neighborhood Association meeting, if they know something that we don't know, bring it, because you do listen. I can see these, I think I marked 4 things that people I've heard say, and you've responded, so that's wonderful. Thank you very much.
Well, Counselor, thank you. And, you know, West Kaiser's been at all of our meetings, I think. Southeast Kaiser's been at all of our meetings. Sadly, I don't know that we've had representation much from the Gubser folks. It's been brought up. Well, there you go. And so I apologize for speaking out of turn on that. You know, I made one of those judgments where you push the button and go, what was I thinking? But somebody posted a comment on Facebook about, did you guys see the new water bill? And then there was lots of love in the comment string. And
And he's not being sarcastic, by the way.
so I put a comment in the bottom and I said, hey, just to let you know, this is your opportunity to come and have a conversation. And then I started seeing a comment rolled through, and it was kind of one of those things where you open the gift from grandma that you're not sure what you're going to get, but you're pretty sure you're never going to wear it. I opened it, and it was a really great comment, and it was from the person that was actually really angry about the thing to begin with. And so she had some objective things, and I says, you know, I asked, can I share this with the group? And yeah, great, thanks. You know, and I was like, oh wow, that's really cool. It's actually a neat stocking cap. So all these analogies tonight, I'm losing it. Anything else?
Just one more thing I want to point out to folks is that this list is not when we're at the end of it, we're done.
Right.
This is a rolling list. This is a 18 to 36 month, but that doesn't mean in 36 months, all the work on the parks is done forever, amen. It means that what we're going to do is we're going to hit the first tier, and then there will be continued to be input through the Parks Advisory Board as we get to the next group and the next group. This is going to roll year by year, so A, we're accountable, B, we'll reprioritize as needs become available or become apparent to us. So this will have some flexibility to it, to adapt to needs, but also that the next things that, oh, now that we've done this, can we now look at that? And the answer is yes, because these will be done, now we can continue to build on that work. So I don't want anybody to think that this is a one and done. Nothing could be further from the truth. This is going to be ongoing. These are our parks. They're going to be taken care of. They're going to be accessible to everybody in the community. And the project maybe that you want may not get done the first year, but it might get done the second or third.
The other piece I think is really important to point out, Madam Mayor, and thank you for bringing that up, is it being a rolling list. So we had folks come in, oh, I want, right? I mean, it's like they're getting the wedding thing when you click on everything you see at Target. We've all
the
been
registry,
there.
yeah.
The registry, yeah. The reality is, I mean, talking with Robert, on the low end, this is probably $1.5 million just on this list, when it's all inclusive. So we're talking a few years straight out the gate. Now, there's things out there that we can get. They're not even on the table, so they're not worth bringing up yet. The other big piece of this is, if there's a significant issue that comes up of safety or maintenance, then you're absolutely right, Madam Mayor, that there would be a reprioritization, and staff would have the flexibility to say, you know, gosh, this tree fell on the charge house, and now we have to remove the charge house and remove the tree and all this other stuff. And I know that that would make some people happy, but it would make others very disappointed. But they'd have that flexibility. The other piece is, you know, as we're developing this, the board's intention is that next fiscal year we'll have our grant system back, and so we can start to kind of look at those match grants again and really make those dollars very effective, because we don't have the ability now to just go, no, we don't have any money to update it or maintain it. Sure, we're going to have to take a full-scale look at it and make sure it makes sense, but I think that hopefully this is really going to kind of spur that conversation and encourage folks to want to come back for those grant dollars. So that's our hope. So.
All right. Anything else on parks? Be there on the 24th.
We do. We have two other items to update.
Okay.
So the last quick one that I'm going to talk about is as it relates to the policy for recognition of naming an amenity. This was brought up as it relates to the volleyball court going in at Kaiser Rapids, or not the volleyball court, but the shelter at the Kaiser Rapids Park. And it really gave us an opportunity to kind of take a look at it as a naming item in general. And we decided to table a conversation because realistically, moving forward over the next year and a half, I don't think that there's a swing set named after somebody or a slide named after somebody. So it's not really an effort that we really want to dedicate a lot of time to right now, unless it becomes super relevant again. Not that it's not relevant, but I think we have to look at those case-by-case basis as they come in and evaluate them and go with the recommendations of staff. But that was about it on that piece.
I have two much shorter things to talk to you about. The posting of the rules at the boat ramp, Parks Division Manager Robert Johnson reported that there was a sign on the dock, but it was stolen. He is ordering a new one, but the parks rules are also posted at the kiosk, and there is a life jacket station there as well. Also on the staff report, there is a new project at Kaiser Rapids Park. Rotary is installing a tree arboretum, which I didn't know what that was until I looked it up tonight. And it is a garden where many different types of trees are grown for people to look at. So I learned something new tonight.
So pretty.
The tree planting project will take place on November 4th on the southeast portion of the park on the Loop Trail. The eastern portion between the trail and the houses. The trees will act as a buffer between the parks and the neighborhood. It is hoped that a lot of different trees will be used that are city approved, of course. 70 trees will be planted in total. Rotary approved a grant for $4,000 for this, and the remainder will come out of the tree budget. The big toy is the rubberized surface base layer is 100%. The top coat is at 30%. Rain may delay its completion, but they're hoping to reopen the park on October 20th. The fall leaf blowing and mowing program is underway and will continue for the next 2 months. And staff is exploring what it would take to remove the filbert trees in the orchard at Kaiser Rapids Park. They are on the end of their life cycle and showing unhealthy signs. Consideration is being given to farming the area with grass for a few years. Done.
All right.
So that's it, and I guess the only thing that I would ask is, do we have the council's blessing to move this thing forward as a talking piece?
Any comments, additions, or anything else on this, these talking points to go out to the public for comment? Okay, by consensus, ask the Parks Board to go forward? Okay, by consensus, the council would like you to go forward with these, with this plan and get public input.
Let's get some full-time employees.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. I think they call it economic development. Fabulous work. All right. Let me get back to my agenda here. Do we have anybody else from committees that wanted to report tonight? I only had Parks signed up. Okay, that will take us then into public testimony. This time is provided for citizens to address the council on any matters other than those on the agenda scheduled for a public hearing, and we have no public hearings scheduled tonight. So in no particular order, but how people arrive. So Mr. Wallery, that means you're up first to talk to us about Christmas lights. Mr. Christmas himself.
Had a little spill there. I was going to say I'm Mr. Christmas, a.k.a. Dave Wallery.
Blew it, Kathy.
Nice to see you all. Here to talk about Christmas lights for the tree and the state of the Christmas lights that are hanging on the street lights. Street lights are in great shape. We're not going to have to do anything for those for quite a while. We refurbished all those a few years ago, and all nice LED lights, and they're I haven't gone out and looked at all the poles yet. Bill, you made a comment earlier that we may need to do some trimming. I'll get back to you on that. I may tag the poles and go around and tag some poles. I'll communicate with you later on that. Tonight, I'm here just to talk about the Christmas tree. At Wallery Plaza, matter of fact. That is a city park.
There you go.
That's all ready to go. That tree keeps growing. So back this year. The wires are getting a little fragile. I haven't replaced the wires for quite some time. They're over 8 years old right now, I think, and they're starting to get really brittle, and a lot of the sockets have been damaged. I was able to find sockets and worked through the sockets last year and got every single one, 3,750 of them working. So it takes a little bit of time. My wife doesn't really enjoy it when there's Christmas lights lying all over the floor, trying to watch TV, but that's the way it goes. So I'm not needing very many lights this year. I'm gonna need probably about 500 light bulb. No, I need about $500, and I think I can do it with about 300. I've got quite a bit of leftover light bulbs, so I just need a few. Green ones seem to be more expensive than red ones for some reason.
Really?
I'm low on green, I'm low on red, need a little amber, and that's about it. Clears are good. So I haven't taken the total inventory. I briefly went over to the house the other day and looked around to see what I had. I think I had about 50 of each color. I usually figure a 50% loss. That's a little high, so I haven't got the total number. 500 might be.
So on the electrical strings themselves, they've taken a real beating the last couple of winters. Our weather's just been brutal. And I go out on a stormy night, and it's still bright and shiny there, but I know that's got to be tough on the lights that are out there.
It's the weather that messes them up. They get hard and they get brittle, and the electricity going through them, and it's just wear out. And it's made out of rubber, so that's
Yeah.
But I'm thinking I can use those probably for this year and possibly one more year. I'm not sure. I don't know what the cost to replace those is going.
Let's find out.
Wire is not real expensive, but if I'm going to replace the wire, since the tree is getting bigger and larger, I might want to elevate the illumination of the light bulb and go with a bigger light bulb. And there's where the expense lies. The light bulbs are expensive.
So you don't need it for this year, but if you could bring to Tim Wood the cost for that, what you find out, that would be helpful to plan ahead. City Manager, do we have funds in the budget for this, the light bulbs, the needs for this year?
Finance Director, do we have money in the budget for light bulbs?
Madam Mayor, City Council, we do have about $1,000 in miscellaneous expense that we have historically not used. So we could probably allocate a portion of that to meet this year's needs of $300 to $500, if that would meet your approval.
Okay. Any comments or questions on this? By consensus, move forward with making sure we keep Christmas lit?
We will not cancel Christmas.
I got some.
Councilor Herrera? you have
Dave, you
something?
know, my dad used to put them in the back of our tree, and as it grew, he just kept moving them up. Is that something? No, I just want to thank you for all, I mean, this is wonderful, and it's a great tradition in Kaiser, and I don't see any problem as far as I'm concerned. So, thank you for all your work.
Councilor Freeman?
Well, Dave and I talk, and I always forget about budget. I don't know why, but it's kind of like, oh yeah, because I guess I don't think Christmas in May, right? So I'll work with Dave and make sure we put a plan together after we look at, I guess, the state of the wires and the bulbs and everything, and so we can get some estimates to actually do a formal budget request this year.
That would be great. Appreciate that. Councilor Anderson?
Yeah, Dave, thanks. Really, I don't even know how many hours you put in on this, but it's, we need to up your salary at some point here. But no, really seriously, really.
Buy more pizza.
Yeah, there you go. Really appreciate all the time that you dedicate to this. It's really awesome. Makes the town look so special. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, and I got a point. I gotta say, isn't it nice having a real Christmas tree or whatever we're calling that tree.
Holiday.
Well, it's a holiday tree, but I call it a Christmas tree.
Yeah.
And it's alive.
Yeah.
Really, really alive.
Versus certain other, cities in this immediate area that, at least we,
Yeah.
no, it's
Wow.
really, it looks cool, and we look so much better than Salem, so just had to say that.
And that really is how we judge ourselves. In almost everything we do. Yeah.
Sometimes.
All right. Anything else? All right. Work with Mr. Wood on reimbursement, and Councilor Freeman will help you with the budget request for next year, and onward to Christmas.
Check with Tim about what kind of documentation he needs to reimburse you before you start spending money. Okay, thanks.
That'd be good.
You know how I roll anyway.
Yeah, we do.
We do. Thanks, Dave.
All right, thank you.
Thanks a lot.
So for clarification, in past, the bills have come directly to the city.
Okay,
So we,
that's fine.
okay.
Okay, that works. All right. Kaiser Parks Foundation, Rich Ford, and the Total Eclipse.
Madam Mayor, it's John Teague. I'm getting text that that microphone isn't working or isn't on.
Okay. Did it?
Matt must just have a volume on it.
Or
Now it's
Turn it
on.
on, it's on. Okay. I'm Rich Ford. I reside here in Kaiser. I'm the current president of the Kaiser Parks Foundation, and I've come tonight to give you some feedback on the Total Eclipse event. I see some faces here that I recognize from putting in many hours planning for that and executing it. I guess where I would start is I think that it went much more smoothly than when we anticipated, and I think that's largely because people trickled in rather than flooded in. And we got a number of comments about how organized we were, and we kind of looked at one another like, really? But I think we kind of made it up and figured it out as we went along, and it all went out pretty smoothly. Very few complaints and a lot of very positive feedback saying that they thought it was well organized, they had a good time. And the eclipse itself was just awesome. I don't think any of us really knew what to expect, but I'm glad that I had the opportunity to see it. But after paying all of our expenses, which includes reimbursing the city $8,000 that they fronted us to get this off the ground, and the money for the to ACE porta potties, and the tipping fees to Lawrence Sanitation, and Lawrence provided the containers for free, but we paid for the tipping charges. And paying for the many T-shirts that we attempted to sell, we netted somewhere at least $25,000, and it may be as much as 29. So we're very happy about that. When Marlene came to us about a year ago and said, you guys got to get on this, and I think you can make around $30,000, you're right on. Well done.
Bravo.
We had our a board meeting last week and had some discussion about how we want to be able to utilize these funds. And I think what we're going to do is keep, what we discussed is that we will keep the funds in our accounts, and people can apply for projects that would have to have some kind of matching element to them. And we realize that whatever people apply for, whatever projects they want to do, and perhaps it's a bench, perhaps it's a covered structure or something like that, there would have to be consistent with individual parks master plan, and that it would have to meet city guidelines. That we're just not going to willy-nilly approve some projects. That would have to be something that we deem worthwhile, and the city says, yes, this will fit with our master plan and our standards. I think we're still going to have some discussion about the criteria we're going to use around dispersing the funds. It could be that somebody comes to the Parks Board who no longer, as I understand it, has any of their discretionary matching grant funds because they applied that
This
to
year.
the skate park. Hopefully in future years, they will have that, but during the upcoming year, it may be that people will make an application to the Parks Board. If they feel it's worthwhile and they don't have the funds for it, they could forward it to us, and then we'll consider it. So I sure hope we don't have another one of these very soon. It was a lot of work, and I really would love to extend thanks to all the people who helped make this happen, but I know that I would leave some names out, and that would be hurtful. But it took a lot of people, a lot of hours to get this done, and some very generous people, too.
So a couple things. I would absolutely agree that everybody who volunteered, I know that Counselor Reed spent a great deal of time out there and looked like you had a great deal of fun on the gator, running around the park. And of course, Council President Parsons and so many others in the community. Counselor Freeman, you were down there, were you not? And it was a phenomenal event. And I thought Kaiser rolled out the welcome mat to the world in a way that was memorable and positive and made us a place that people want to come back. So well done. With the Parks Matching Grant, I don't know if you have a grant application yet. You might want to look at the template that has been developed by our Parks Board as a possibility, so there's some consistency. So I would just throw that recommendation out there. We like to use the same wheel when we can because that's how Kaiser rolls. Sorry, that's all I got. And then the other part would be, I'm glad you mentioned about the collaboration with our Parks Master Plan. And I don't know if the Parks Foundation has considered some of the upgrades that were just discussed earlier with the Parks Maintenance Program. If there's a way to take an amenity and take it up a notch with a matching grant, maybe that would get some leverage out of those dollars. So those are some things that, as the foundation discusses how to maximize the long-term benefit of those dollars, that you might want to, I would ask you to think about.
It's been our longstanding policy to fund improvements, but not maintenance or repairs. So as long as it meets those criteria, I think we'd be open to considering it. One other thing I wanted to mention too is that one of our few mistakes was that we didn't order enough XXL t-shirts, and we ordered way too many small and medium t-shirts. So I ended up with about 140 t-shirts in boxes in my garage, most of which were smalls and mediums. And at our last meeting, we decided to offer those to Claggett Creek Middle School. Figured that they would probably fit middle schoolers. And I took one over to them last week or earlier this week, and they said that that would be very useful, that they need that for kids who don't have appropriate clothing or may have worn inappropriate clothing to school. And they took all of them. They wanted them all. So they went to good use. Even though we didn't get them sold, they went to good use.
Wonderful. Counselor Reed.
Okay, we did get those extra larges and XXLs and so forth made and produced. Are they still in somebody's office? Okay. So anyway, we do have those, and they're ready for distribution whenever we get around to that.
If I may, those shirts are with the vice chair of the foundation, who happens to be my wife. So she has possession of them. I no longer have possession of them. I turned them over.
Well, thank you, and thank you, Nate, for getting them to Bill.
So if people want to get a hold of those or anything else from the Eclipse to get a hold of the Parks Foundation for the
If
t-shirt.
there are any t-shirts left, I'm unaware of it, but
Okay,
get them in my garage, I guess.
all right.
They're already sold pretty much.
All pretty much sold? Fabulous. Well, again, I want to express my appreciation to everybody who was involved in this, and people had a wonderful time down at the Eclipse. Clint was here a few meetings ago talking about the concerts that went with it, and they added so much to the whole experience for people there at the park. So, any other comments or questions on how this is going to go forward? I look forward to hearing how the Parks Foundation and the matching grants multiply.
Right.
All right, thank you so much. That brings us to Colleen Bush, who is with the Salem Kaiser Transit. She's our representative on that board, along with Kathy Lincoln. and she's here to talk to us about the strategic planning session for Chariots and the safe routes to schools. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. Thank you for having me here. This seems weird being on this end. I'm Colleen Bush. I reside in Kaiser, and we just had our board work session for the Salem-Kaiser Transit District tonight and beginning to discuss our enhancements that we get to do because of House Bill 2017. We're looking to add Saturday service, late night service, and our discussions will start this Saturday. I want to invite you, all of you, to attend our strategic planning session. We'll start at 9 o'clock at the Center for Business and Industry on High Street. We'll go to about 2 o'clock. We're going to talk about the overview of House Bill 2017, what that means for the transit district. We'll talk about the requirements of the plan, enhancement priorities, the order of implementation, public outreach, et cetera, and also the House Bill 2017 Advisory Committee. So that process is getting started. I am so excited that we get to do that, and I get to be a part of that, and I'd like you all to be part of that too. We're looking at possible implementation of January of 19 as far as going through all these steps that have to go through, with the rules still not quite made yet. So that's the main one there. Is there any questions on that?
Can you repeat the date and time for the meeting?
This Saturday, October 21, the strategic planning session for the Transit District regarding House Bill 2017 and its implementation will be held at the Chemeketa Center for Business and Industry on High Street in room 115. It is a public meeting, although we do not take public comments. You can come and listen to our discussion.
All right, fabulous, and it's been a long time coming to be able to expand the service for public transit, and there's so many people in our community for jobs and, just basic life need to be able to get around, and it's wonderful to have more than one option.
Yes, we're very excited to be a part of that. And I just wanted to bring up Safe Route to School. Along with House Bill 2017, there has been appropriations for money to help build sidewalks. And I know that Kaiser has some need of that, especially in the Cummings Elementary area and the Kennedy School and Elementary area. So just keep an eye on when all the rules can be made and that you can apply for grants and get those things assisted. So
Absolutely.
that's all.
And I know Mr. Lawyer's keeping track of that as well, opportunities to get those grants in. So, if we can collaborate to just make sure that we stay on track, it would be fabulous.
Okay,
All
that's
right.
all.
Any other questions for Colleen Bush? Thank you so much for coming. We
Thank you very
appreciate
much.
it. And thank you for your work on transit on our behalf.
Welcome. I'm thoroughly enjoying it.
Thank you. That's all I have signed up for public testimony. Is there anybody else who'd like to address the council tonight? All right, then we will move on with our agenda to, let me get that up here, administrative action, and item 8A is an order in the matter of the application of ACP 1 LLC for a third amendment to the Kaiser Station Master Plan Area A Village Center Master Plan Case Number 2017-17. City Manager.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Mr. City Attorney.
Thank you, Chris, Madam Mayor and Council. This matter came before the Council for public hearing on September 18, and you directed us, after closing that hearing, to prepare an appropriate order approving the application. This order for the Area A Master Plan amendment is for the Kaiser Permanente Dental Office. As you may recall, instead of building one large office building, they wanted to build two smaller ones. And so the order approving that amendment is attached, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. Any questions on the staff report for the order? Council President Parsons.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I move that the Kaiser City Council adopt order in the matter of the application of ACP ILLC for a third amendment to the Kaiser Station Master Plan Area A Village Center Master Plan Case Number 2017-17.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that the Kaiser City Council adopt an order in the matter of the application of APC 1 LLC for a third amendment to the Kaiser Station Master Plan Area A Village Center Master Plan Case Number 2017-17. Discussion. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes unanimously. That takes us then back to the top. There we go. Whoops, too far. Item 8B, an ordinance terminating the Urban Renewal Agency of the City of Kaiser. City Manager.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. City Attorney.
Thank you, Chris, Madam Mayor, and Council. As a parallel to the earlier meeting with the Urban Renewal Agency, this is the ordinance that terminates the Urban Renewal Agency and accepts the assets of the agency. And so we have an ordinance attached for your review on that issue. In addition, there's a couple things, one pretty minor and one not so minor. The Urban Renewal Agency adopted, because the Urban Renewal Agency was the property owner for the focal point, as you know, there on Chemawa and River Road, to allow signage. Particularly, it came up years ago with regard to Clinton and the KRA, or the Rotary Amphitheater. And so we had a specific provision, and we attached that here. Since that's going away, I think it's pretty simple, but we wanted to ask, we probably would want to continue that, and we would come back with a resolution to kind of reimpose that as the city now instead of the Urban Renewal Agency, so we have a paper trail of that. The other issue is a bigger issue, and I'm not sure how many councilors were here for that, but I think the mayor was, and the issue is one, it's UR 2012, so that tells you how long ago it was, 156, which is entitled Affirming Intent of the Urban Renewal Agency Regarding Replacement Funding for River Road Renaissance Project. For those of you that might not remember or might not have been around, when we had the default situation with the Kaiser Station LID, or Local Improvement District, we were unfortunately had to basically shelve the Renaissance project for those funds, because we had to show our fellow jurisdictions who were helping us by basically foregoing revenue because of the urban renewal extension for those monies, that we were feeling the pain too. So we couldn't very well ask them, hey, can you forego revenue for our urban renewal extension to get us out of this default situation, if we didn't feel that same kind of pain. So we had to pull that money out. At that time, the council was clear that they said that if that property, the default property, ever got sold and all the jurisdictions were reimbursed and we still had leftover funds, that they would go to the River Road Renaissance project. So the question is, and again, these two minor questions are just directions from staff after you pass the ordinance, is do you want us to come back with something similar from the city's point of view? And the only comment that I'll make on that is, the sign one is a pretty straightforward one. This one's a little bigger one, and at the time I indicated to the council, remember that any future council can decide, and it kind of depends on what the projects are. But the council at that time, and I'm fine with that if that's what you want to do, wanted to make it very clear and in writing, in a resolution form, this is what our intent is. So for future councils, when and if that came to pass, it'd be clear on what that is. A future council can change that. So I just want to make sure you understand that portion of it. So again, the recommendation is to first pass the attached ordinance with regard to terminating the Urban Renewal Agency, and then after that, direction on those two resolutions. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions for Mr. Johnson? Council President Parsons.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I move that the Kaiser City Council adopt a bill for an ordinance terminating the Urban Renewal Agency of the City of Kaiser.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that the Kaiser City Council adopt a bill for an ordinance, I just switched pages, terminating the Urban Renewal Agency of the City of Kaiser. Discussion. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes unanimously. So regarding the issue, oops, come on, page back. The joys of a touch screen. So regarding the two issues that were brought up, there we go. So we have to give direction on the two items, the first being the informational signs at the focal point, and then the second being discussion of monies, should they become available in the future, to go toward River Road Renaissance or some similar program. So let's take the first one first. And that was informational signs at the focal point. If I remember, oh, there's the copy there. What page is that? Thank you. For some reason, my bookmarks aren't doing the right thing for me tonight. Okay. So, input on the signs for the focal point. Opinions, one way or the other? Is there anybody who would like to move forward with that, or just kind of let this go? If there's a recommendation from either the Festival Advisory, who might want those for directional signs at some point, that would be a good committee to maybe see if that would fold into some of your programming. So can we kick that to that group to see if there is something of that nature that would be helpful for directing visitors in our town?
I think that would go under the public events provision, the purpose of public events.
Okay. So it is the consensus of council then to have this taken up by the Festival Advisory Board to see if there is and this is something that that group has talked about in the past, about wayfinding or informational signage that would be appropriate, and then come back with a recommendation if there is any. Do I have a consensus of council to move in that direction? Okay, so we will do that. The second then being the funding from the sale of properties that were in the urban renewal area, that some of those proceeds, once all of the other obligations are paid, because I believe some of those proceeds have to go back to the transportation or street fund, am I correct?
No, we're talking specifically about the.
Yeah, microphone.
Yeah, sorry. I'm so good at harping on people about this and then not good at doing it myself. But I think we're specifically speaking about the Rollins parcel. Yes?
That is the only parcel currently that would have a potential of eventually being sold and having proceeds that exceed whatever our last remaining amounts would be on reimbursement. So it's nothing directly to do with the street fund that I'm aware of.
Right.
Okay, and I want to be clear on that. So this would just be net dollars, and then the recommendation on how those dollars, should they become available, would be spent.
Right.
That's going to be a while, and council will change again. As you pointed out earlier, I'm the last standing from the group that passed that in 2012. It would seem to me that River Road Renaissance, or at least the concepts of improving amenities, is something we've been discussing quite a bit recently with looking at our development code and how we can take that up another level, and that might be some dollars we could put toward that in the future once we have looked at those and do some matches possibly, especially looking at some of our smaller businesses that couldn't afford or maybe need some assistance to do something significant. And I think that was the idea behind River Road Renaissance, although those were 100% grants, that the city council now or in the future may wish to use those to leverage improvements on River Road. But we don't have a program in place at this time. So how do we want to memorialize that for a future council to know that that is still the intent, or at least in my opinion, I'll need to hear from the rest of the council, on how those dollars should or could be allocated for.
Well, if I may, Madam Mayor, we can certainly look at the current resolution that's attached here, that's from the Urban Renewal Agency, and see if there's any tweaks to that that would be appropriate in terms of leaving the flexibility for not only this council but future councils. And I'll remind council, because my assistant reminded me, we still have a goal.
We do.
And so if you don't pass a resolution, you still have the goal, and the council can change the goals. So either way is fine. What I really want council to understand, that this is what we call in law school kind of precatory language, meaning wish language. It's a resolution showing intent. And what I don't, and I'm fine either way, if you want me to do up one, we can come back with that. as long as the council understands that this is something that both this council and a future council may want to tweak a little bit in terms of exactly how that would work, along the lines of what you were talking about, Madam Mayor. It may be River Road Renaissance, it may be a different look than that when that comes in. And for the sake of some of the councilors that weren't here, we had no idea that these, I mean, the good and the bad on the LID, without going into a lot of painful history, is that it came out much better than we had hoped, because the two most valuable pieces of property, the office where Kaiser Permanente is now and the hotel, both of those were not only undeveloped but had no hope at that point of anybody coming in, and those were extremely large LIDs. The LID for the hotel was paid off in advance, and the LID for the office, Kaiser Permanente, has no worries about it being paid twice a year like it's supposed to be. So it was really only the Rollins property. There was another small tract, but it was really only the Rollins property that was the issue. We felt that one way or the other that would either get paid off or foreclosed and then sold, but the deal that was ultimately struck with the Rollins allowed a 5-year option. So there's 2 more years remaining on that option, or a little, I think, approximately 2 years, maybe a little less now. That's the history of that. When we said, okay, we're going to do this for River Road Renaissance, everyone thought, well, either this is going to get paid off or we'll have proceeds and you know, we're back in business. And instead, it's been quite a few years. So that's kind of the short history there.
And part of the discussion that we had through the Economic Development Commission was how can we put together possibly an economic development grant program or revolving loans. You know, there were some ideas on how those dollars could have been used, but the problem is that we don't have them in hand, and we really don't have a reasonable time frame right now to say, yes, we're going to have this at this time, and now we can go ahead and disperse them or leverage them into further economic development. But what is the will of the council in terms of memorializing that these dollars still need to be held for the purpose of economic development in the River Road, and may I add Cherry Avenue, the urban renewal area, which included both. Comments, opinions? Councilor Ryan?
I guess just a question, when you say these dollars, if at this point we don't have these dollars, where are they coming from? Where are we putting them into a separate account? I mean, it's not part of the budget, if I remember correctly, that we have set aside, so I guess I'm a little confused. If you could just clarify that for me.
These would be the future dollars from the sale of the Rollins properties when they do come online. Right now, they're still 2 years out before we can even have that conversation.
Thank you.
Further comments, thoughts? Councilor Anderson?
Well, if I understand this correctly, I mean, I think it appears to make perfect sense to, you know, once those dollars do come in, that you keep them with some form of economic development for the improvement, kind of the original plan for that. So I definitely would be supportive of that direction.
Councilor Reed?
Yes, I agree too, especially in light of the conversations we've been having around the public amenities discussions and so forth. If we had some funds to be able to support that, I think it's the same kind of goal as these were originally intended. So I would also be supportive of that.
Okay. Further comments? Do you have enough to go on?
Yeah, and I'll look at the current one under urban renewal and see if there's anything in there that looks like it would be appropriate to be tweaked to give the council flexibility in the future, and come back at a future meeting.
Okay. And, you know, we've made reference to the River Road Renaissance Plan, which was a vision of different ways that we could continue to enhance the appearance and marketability of River Road. So the general guise of economic development and continue to elevate the economic vitality of River Road, I think, and Cherry Avenue. I don't want to forget Cherry. Those two corridors in particular as our backbone, if you will, is going to be, I think, where we might want to go. River Road Renaissance in the concepts, but maybe not in, because a lot of the projects that were listed in there, a lot of them have been done or have now been superseded. Although there are certain areas that still could use some significant work. All right, any other comments or questions? All right. Thank you very much. That takes us then to the consent calendar. Council President Parsons.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We have 5 items on the consent calendar tonight. A is a resolution authorizing the city manager to enter into an intergovernmental agreement with the Salem-Keizer School District 24J for the school resources officer. B is a resolution designating rental income as dedicated park operations revenue. C is approval of the September 11th, 2017 work session minutes. D, approval of September 18th regular session minutes. And E, approval of October 2nd, 2017 regular session minutes.
All right, I'm going to pull B. Anybody else have an item they need to pull? Council President Parsons?
I recommend approval of item A, C, D, and E.
Second.
Consent calendar items A, C, D, and E have been moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion passes unanimously. I had a conversation with the city manager when I went through the packet, and I asked to pull B because I would like to clarify some language on the, where was it? On line 14, where I thought it was not clear that this was the same as the earlier part of the resolution regarding how these funds will be used. I didn't understand, let's see, where was it? Oh, farther down, that there would be a reserve. And I think that was, it needs to be clarified that these funds will be available for parks operations upon receipt, or unless they need to be budgeted, but there was not going to be a set aside per se. Oh, here it is. Line 22. Be it further resolved that all rental income excess of actual expenses that is identified above will be held in reserve for future years. I thought that these funds would become available when they hit the budget.
They are available. It says in excess of actual expenses, meaning if there's expenses for that year, if you read the paragraph right above, shall dedicated for use for park operations expense, including maintenance and improvements
Right.
for the house as determined. So, but it says park operation expense. So if there's money, we could use the money when it comes in. If there's any left over, it would go into reserve.
And not into the general ability to spend it across the entire general fund just for parks.
Okay.
So that's the piece. That's
Right.
Right.
So the word reserve, to me, is confusing.
Okay.
So I would just leave, what I would like is that it's very, very clear that these dollars stay in the parks budget for park appropriations. Reserve just sounds like you're going to set it aside for some future whatever. And I don't-
Non-park thing is your concern?
Well, park or non-park, but just a reserve just sounds like a different line item or a different agenda than using it for maintenance and operations. So I'm not sure what reserve really means here.
I don't know. Tim, I think, has his hand up.
Thank you.
Many of our funds have specific restrictions, so this would be similar to, say, the police department receives canine donations. We can only use those canine donations for specific canine projects. This would be a similar kind of thing. We would receive the rental income in. We would use it for expenses related to the house. If we didn't have enough expenses in one year, that money would just carry over to the next year. So it's not a specific reserve, it's just carrying it over to the next year so that we could use it for house expenses in the following years.
Yeah, I think the issue is the expenses are supposed to be used for park operations. So the question is, I mean, aside from anything that needs to be done to the house. So when we say held in reserve for future years, would it be better if we just said carry it over for park expenses?
That would be fine.
Okay. Thank you.
Noted.
Okay, so you've got the Janice working on the language there.
Operations, so what did we say? Park operations expenses. Is that a proper term? Park, what would be the proper term, Bill, do you know? In the-
Operations is fine as long as that definition includes improvements.
Just the parks,
Perhaps
we
we
don't-
just need
my-
to
my-
say Parks
my-
Fund.
Parks Fund.
Yeah, I was gonna say, that way we don't have to segregate this dollar for operations only against other dollars that would be improvements. So Parks Fund, Parks Operating Fund or Parks Fund.
Just want to make sure that it doesn't go toward planning or police,
Right.
for instance.
And it says
House
on
and
line
grounds.
19, it says including maintenance and improvements in the aforementioned rental house, et cetera, et cetera.
It says that right there.
Okay.
So,
that's clear.
I'm gonna change, if, with the consent of council, I'm gonna change a couple places here, and I'll just tell you, and my apologies, because now I see that perhaps I should have touched base with Tim or Bill before I put this
Well,
together.
and had I brought the mayor's concern to you when she asked me to,
Then I wouldn't be writing so fast, would I?
you're writing so fast, so my apologies.
Yeah,
Not gonna throw you
so
under the
Park
bus.
Fund has a capital P and a capital F, meaning the
All right.
budget process. So with the consent of council, I would look at, starting on line 14 at the very end, delete park operations expense and put capital P Park, capital F Fund expenditures. Is that the term we use, revenue and expenditures? And that on line 19, you change park operations expense to park fund expenditures. Kind of looks funny. And then on line 23, scratch out held in reserve for future years and just say instead carried over for future park fund expenditures.
Okay.
Does that meet with your intent? Okay.
It's clear to me now, so I appreciate that. Council President Parsons, you want to put a motion on?
Yes, I move that we approve item B with the amendments on line 14, 19, and 23.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that the Kaiser City Council adopt Resolution R 2017 designating rental income as dedicated park operations revenue as amended on lines 14, 19, and 23 to reflect park fund expenditures. Discussion. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. That takes us then to... There we go. Low agenda. Council liaison reports, and I think last time I picked on Councilor Anderson, so tonight I'll pick on Councilor Ryan.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Mine are short and sweet. Our Kaiser Arts Committee has altered our meetings schedule, so we are meeting every other month, I believe. Is that correct, Nate? With the exception if we have a need, then we can call a special meeting. And as well, we're still doing our community engagement with the kids for the, and students of all ages for the story polls, and we're in the middle of that, which needs a little attention, so please share that information. We'd love to have the kids join us for the creation of the story polls. And then secondly, Kaiser United, we met today, and we are continuing to work on a fundraiser to try to implement for the kids, our peer court, in the spring, and I'll keep you updated. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Okay. Question, is the holiday card design contest closed?
No, it's open till I believe on November 17th.
Okay, so if people want to submit designs for the holiday card to send
Absolutely.
it to
Absolutely,
the
to the
city.
city. Thank
Okay.
you. And it's on, all the requirements and information is on the website with on the bar on top of the Kaiser City website.
Okay,
Thank you.
so we'll all share that out. Great, thank you so much. Councilor Freeman.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just want to thank Councilor President Parsons for covering me for the traffic, bikeways, pedestrian, and Councilor Herrera for attending West Kaiser. I know they were grateful to have someone because I wasn't able to be there, so I appreciate that. There will not be a volunteer coordinating committee meeting this week on the 19th due to most of our appointees will be attending the Kaiser Chamber Foundation Building a Better Board, which starts at 5. You do need to be registered, and I'm not sure if you can still register or not. If does, I'm not sure if anyone knows, but I know there's a $25 charge per person. So, except for the volunteer coordinating committee, but if anyone's listening and, would like to attend, there is a fee for that, and we do still have several openings available. The due date is Wednesday, November 8th, and so there is one opening on the Planning Commission. There are 3 vacancies on the Budget Committee, 1 vacancy on the Kaiser Points of Interest, 3 vacancies on the Parks Advisory Board, 3 vacancies on the Traffic Safety Bikeways Pedestrian Committee, 1 vacancy for the Storm Water Advisory Committee, and as always, we are recruiting for our youth liaisons for all of our other committees. And as you can see, we have Youth Counselor Hernandez here, and just need other youth for any other committees that we have. So that's all I have. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Councilor Reed.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And just so you know, we have distributed lots of applications for those youth liaison positions. So now I'm working on getting them in for you. But yes, we're on that. Madam Mayor and I saw Dog Park the Musical for the Kaiser Homegrown Theater last weekend, or I guess the first weekend. They've been going 2 weekends. They run one more. It's a fantastic show. Great for families and just a lot of fun. And the halftime performance is actually kind of interesting. They have a dog trainer come in and give some pointers on that, and that was really interesting. So yeah, that's lots of fun. And then Mayor Clark and Councilor Parsons and I worked at the Habitat for Humanity, and that was, again, a very worthwhile endeavor, and they have lots of great things going on down there, and so that was fun. And I attended the Fire District Open House, which was fascinating. And it was, in addition to the Fire District, they also have the Public Works and the police having demonstrations as well. And I learned a phenomenal amount. I learned about the city's water system. I learned about backflow and all kinds of interesting things. And we saw demonstrations of the K-9 unit, and that's fascinating. And anyway, it was just really a lot of fun. And we had a really good turnout, lots of kids there. And so thank you to everybody who got the word out on that. And we got to see all our new fire toys, our equipment. Fantastic. Our big ladder, our big ladder truck, our wonderful brush truck, and all kinds of really cool stuff. And they're making really good use of those. So, so that was great to see. We had a Kaiser Heritage Board meeting. One of the points of that might be of interest to the public is there are now motion sensor lights in that Heritage building. And so that hopefully will make the neighborhood a little bit better place for that. I attended an informational meeting on this upcoming Salem-Kaiser School District bond. And this was a really interesting and informational meeting. I have some information here if councilors would like to kind of review that. I don't know if I have enough for everybody, but you can kind of take a look. So this is a bond that is coming up to the ballot in May of 2018. And it is some highlights of this, and this is a very, very useful one-pager of some of the benefits that passing this bond would procure. Add capacity to support enrollment in educational programs, increase seismic safety of schools, which not only for the schools, but also makes them up to reoccupancy standards, which means that we can use them as a community resource as well in the case of a seismic event. To increase safety and security and get some non-routine maintenance, roofs, floors, HVAC kinds of things, and technology and ADA upgrades. This McNary High School was built in 1964 and have had some things done to it over the years for sure, but it is in need of some some pretty considerable renovation. And this is only the one piece of the district bond. This is how it would benefit our area. And clearly there are all of our schools in the Salem-Keizer School District in the Keizer area will benefit from this, but this is just the information that I got as to how it would benefit our high school. So I really encourage you to look into this, to be fully informed. When bonds come up on the ballot, we sometimes look at the cost without really fully looking into the benefits, and it is something that is an excellent chance for us to invest in the future of our schools. So that was really interesting, and I really appreciated getting that information. A little bit later that night, we had a parking forum at McNary, where we discussed a lot of these parking issues that have come before council in the past several months, and that was a good conversation. I think it helped people realize that each of these interested parties have a concern with the parking and the gate openings and closings and so forth. And that really Mr. Jesperson's biggest concern is for the benefit of the students, and making sure that we don't put up barriers that will keep them from coming to school. And yes, we need to be good neighbors and all of those things as well, but all of the parties have stake in this, and we need to hear everybody's perspectives. And so a big thank you to everybody who attended those meetings, and especially for our city representation. We had Chief Teague there, and Mr. Epley was here, and the mayor was there, and I think it just really speaks well to how well we work with our schools, how invested in the success of the community we all are. So I think that was an important message. We have a Southeast Keizer Neighborhood Association meeting this Friday at the Mennonite Church at 6:30. So if you are living in that area, we would love to see you. We need more members, and so please come to that. Also, on a sad note, we lost one of our McNary students this last week. Nyosh John Mark was a junior at McNary High School, and he passed away due to some complications from an illness. And so our heart goes out to the John Mark family and friends. And please be aware of the resources that are available at the school in terms of grief counseling and so forth. And we need to do all we can to, as a community, rally around this family during this difficult time. So, thank you.
Thank you very much. Council President Parsons.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So I attended the Marion County Commissioners Breakfast last week. We talked about the Marion County reentry, the fundraising breakfast on the 27th of this month. And then we talked about the goings-on, all our building in Keizer and Marion County issues. Nothing real heavy sitting on us, at least. I went to the Bikeways. I'm not going to say it all, but I went to that one for Councilor Freeman. And they had some money, and they put that money to good use. They gave away 48 bicycle helmets at Surfest, and then they gave away 29 more at the fire open house. And they actually fitted each child before they gave them away. And people could give donations if they wanted to. So they probably got like maybe a third of their money back that they spent just in donations. So that was pretty good. They also are doing something for the schools. And, she talked about safety walking to school. But now they're talking about the placement, the walking routes itself. You can't say safety because that's a federal thing. But we did a lot of walking routes to the schools map. And Mr. Fry did that, Wayne Fry. He builds soccer fields and then he does maps. And then so he distributed them to 5 elementary schools so far, and to hand out to the parents about walking routes to school. And that was received very well. Let me see. And then they talked about the bike routes. They're working to change some of the bike routes in Keizer. And so Hirsch is working with the Salem Bicycle Club and all those things to try to change them. I think they want to change them to maybe a little bit safer, but I'm not really sure. I also did the Habitat for Humanity build, got dirty and dusty, but it was well worth it. And that's all I have. Thank you.
It was fun. Thank you very much. Councilor Ferreira.
Okay, missed a few meetings, but I made quite a few of them. Last Monday, I attended the CTEC Advisory Council, the Career and Technical Education Center. And just so you guys know, if you ever want to take a tour of that place, let me know, because, you know, we have access to, Chuck will help us out, get a great, they have great stuff there, and they're coming in with, next year they're adding culinary and law enforcement. But right now they have, you know, residential construction, welding, cosmetology, what's the other one?
Drones.
Video, and then drone technology, which is a big deal, and that's going to be a lot of fun. By the way, their graduation rate is really high. The current attendance is right under 500 people, but they have a capacity of up to 1,100 people there. And if you haven't seen the place, I mean, it's amazing. And just watching the students interact, and it's really wonderful. Also, I attended the Marion County Public Safety Coordinating Committee, or, right, Council. Okay. And that was interesting. We had Mrs., what was her name, Laney from CASA, which made a nice report. Shaney Starr, I believe, made a nice report. And also Jim Ferreras, the police chief in Woodburn, did an eye-opening presentation on the opioid epidemic. And I mean, we've been hearing about it, but it's a lot more than you think. I mean, it's amazing what's going on. I can't, you know, it's just, anyway, very eye-opening. Also, I wanted to congratulate McNary for beating West Albany last, and they're going to be playing at, excuse me, I think it's going to be West Salem home. So try to attend that last home game if you can. It's been pretty exciting. They're competing really well. Coach Alvanen is doing a wonderful job. He's very positive. It's fun to watch him. Although they're young, they're competing. Also on October 21st, I will be attending the Freedom Banquet fundraiser for the NAACP on behalf of this council, or this city, I guess, along with Lance Inman, who will be there for chief. Also, we have the Latino Business Alliance, which I will be participating in on November 9th, over here at the Chemeketa Community College Business Center on Broadway. And it's kind of a good interaction, networking. That's a lot of fun. Also, what else do I have here? That's pretty much it. That's pretty much it. The one I will say is come and support our teams, not only the football team, but all the McNary teams. The kids work real hard, as well as the band, and all the activities over there are just incredible. So come support your local high school. Thank you very much.
You bet. All right. Counselor Anderson,
Thank you.
there's always something.
There's always something else. You're a busy guy. I was at the Kaiser Chamber Board meeting October 11th. Is kind of the main thrust of things there is just getting some, continuing to get things ready to go for the various things that they are doing in the community, like the Turkey Dash or the Jingle Dash or the Holiday Lights Parade. So as we heard kind of tonight, preview of that, what's going on there. So well underway, and I believe folks are interested. Those runs have been very popular. Registration, I believe, is online and open now for those. Then I got to point out Men of Action, the group that Bob Shackelford and the other able folks head up and are out supporting various events. I don't know the date on that, but there was, as this council may recall, the Bunko tournament for breast cancer awareness. I think that was held, I don't know if it was it held here? Okay, well, they were involved in helping setting it up and cleaning it up. So hats off to those guys. They just continue to really impress me with their outreach in the community. And then I believe on October 25th, there's going to be a chamber open house here in the Civic Center, and I believe the city's going to have the opportunity to have a table there as well to kind of display what all goes on here at the City of Kaiser, and that'll be from 4 to 7 p.m. here. Christmas tree lighting, mark your calendars, way in advance, Tuesday, December 5th is when that's going to be occurring. And then do not have a date on the Holiday Lights Parade and Jingle Dash, but I'm sure somebody does, and it's on a Saturday. I know that. So probably the following Saturday for that. Thank you. December 9th. There we go. Excellent. Well done. Just some upcoming events. Councilor Herrera already mentioned our awesome athletic programs that are, I've got to do a shout out to, because I have a personal connection with McNary Youth Football. They have got their season up and going. And if you've never been to one of those little games that are taking place on Saturday, you ought to go do that. It's really quite impressive. And we've got, because we're part of Tualatin Valley Athletic League, Football League, we've got kids from all over the area coming down and with their families and into our community. And we kind of go up there. We're up in Clackamas actually next Saturday. So we're definitely going around and in full swing for that. Couple of events I'm going to be at, more through a professional connection than anything else, but Family Building Blocks is doing their Dream Builder event on October 19th. And that is an amazing organization, nonprofit doing some awesome things in our community for children and families at risk, really providing some vital outreach to the community. This year's Dream Builder event, I believe, is kind of an anniversary of sorts, and they are going to absolutely jam-pack both ballrooms in the Salem Convention Center. They've never done that before. I don't know if anybody has. But they could be looking at upwards of around 1,200 people filling both ballrooms. So I'm really looking forward to being at that. And then October 27th is that Marion County Community Breakfast contemplating dealing with the reentry program as well. So I shall be there at that as well. And final plug I got to put in here for we are in concert mode again. Right now, October 10th, Whitaker Middle School and their awesome choir program launched their fall concert program. A couple of the upper echelon choirs at Whitaker, and sorry the name slipped my mind, but they performed at the Oregon Music Educators Conference. That was a big honor that came here to the Salem area. So I thought that was really cool, and I gotta really say that's only due to the hard work of our music educators here in Salem Keizer Schools, and notably Andy Thomas at Whitaker Middle School. If you guys haven't been out for one of those concerts that they do, I really urge you to go. They're really impressive. So anyway, thank you.
All right, thank you very much. I absolutely agree. We have amazingly talented young people in our community. Speaking of which, one of them is sitting right here. Youth Councilor Hernandez, what do you have to share with us tonight?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We just had our first grading period, which marks the end of the first 6 weeks out of 6, so we're 6 of the way done with the school year.
Also doing public math.
Last Wednesday, it was a bit of an odd day at McNary. We had our PSAT day for the freshmen, sophomores, and juniors, so for those of you that you probably know, the standardized aptitude test, so they were able to take a swing at that, take a practice round, so that prepare them for standardized tests later on. Meanwhile, seniors had a day to work on graduation requirements and get together and take the big senior picture in the gym, which was exciting. For FBLA, we had our big signing night, and that's when we have our members commit to being a part of our business program for the rest of the year. We had it in the cafeteria, and we had amazing catering stuff. About 60 members came and signed that night, and those who were not able to make it were able to sign before the event. So it's exciting to prepare for events in the future for our program. And October, the fall sports season is kind of winding down to an end. For cross country, our districts meet will be at Bush Park on October 25th around 4. And I know a lot of other sports will be winding down, so go out there and support your teams as they put in 2-3 months of work into this, so it's exciting to see the culmination of those efforts. This Thursday, the 14th, is a McNary choir concert, so go check that out. Yeah. Oh, the 19th. Sorry. Yeah. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, so that's the 19th choir. Okay. We got music, art, we got theater, we got it all here. Just a couple things to add, like there's more to do. I was at the SEDCOR, which is the Strategic Economic Development Corporation Board of Directors. One of the big things we're talking about is the number of jobs and the dollars, millions of dollars of investment that are coming into our area. We've seen over, especially in the Mill Creek area, but that's not the only space that is enjoying economic development in our region, but it certainly has the biggest dollars, and with Amazon, it's going to be a huge number of jobs coming into our area. So there's a lot of excitement around the development of the Mill Creek Corporate Center. The interesting thing is I was looking at a map of that just a couple of years ago, and Chad Freeman, the president, pointed this out as well. They only had like 1 or 2 spaces that were occupied, and all these other spaces that were still on the market, they're down to maybe 1 or 2 that are not spoken for now. It's been that fast turnaround. So way to go to Chad Freeman, the board of directors, and the collaboration with the city, county, and the state in helping fill that space with great businesses that are going to bring great jobs to our community. Way to go. The Kaiser Heritage Board, you heard about that. But mark your calendar for the 26th, which is Heritage Halloween Night. It is free. Kids wear your costumes. There's going to be all sorts of activities in the museum, at the library, and the art center. Pumpkin carving, story time, all sorts of fun things for the family at the Heritage Center right next door. The library has approved their memorandum of understanding with the Heritage for the other part of managing that building. That is a community treasure, the Heritage Center is. So Tracy and her team have been working on running the event center portion, and now the library is going to help with managing the building maintenance, keeping track of things there. So that is coming along very nicely for sustained operations for the Heritage Center. On Saturday, I joined over 2,300 members of our community as they came out in force to let people know that suicide prevention is important in our community, that's a value of our community, and that we care about one another. I was overwhelmed, I think as many people were, and I know the people who were during the registration were blown away at the number of people who had signed up and that continued to sign up that morning. Over $87,000 at that time have been raised, and the numbers are continuing to go up. And the support that people felt, that families felt, from joining with friends that they hadn't met yet as they walked and thought about people who they've lost to suicide, and also the people they're helping, coming alongside and helping steer people toward hope and embracing life. Way to go, Salem and Kaiser. I am so proud of our community. The Council of Governments Board will meet tomorrow, discussing things along planning, transportation, with a lot of the services that are provided to us by the Council of Governments, and continuing work on the Homeless Initiative Program Manager. The cities of Monmouth and Independence have joined the City of Salem, City of Kaiser, and Marion County in supporting this financially to get this project manager hired to help with overseeing and bringing more and more of our services together, bringing best practices and helping us make significant progress in helping people in our community who are homeless or housing insecure. I'll also be at the Catholic Community Services Luncheon on Wednesday, and then on Thursday and Friday, the League of Oregon Cities, on which I am a board member, will interview the 2 finalists for the new executive director. The announcement should be made Friday afternoon on who that selection will be. This Saturday, Coffee with Kathy. If you want to have coffee with the mayor, you don't even have to drink the coffee. Just come on down and chat, 1 o'clock at Birdie's. Love to see you there. I'll be there from 1 to 3. Next week is Salem Kaiser Area Transportation Study, SCATS, on the 24th. And then I'll be at the Veterans Services Dinner for Brothers of Valor on the 28th. Want to check with all of you. The Gubser Miracle of Christmas got a hold of me, and they wanted to know, can you work at the food barrel from 6 to 8 on the 2nd? I know it's the same night as Snowball.
It always is.
It always is, but if you're going to be, yeah, you're not going to Snowball this year? All right, just checking to see if you have a date. So anyway, any of you who can, email me, let me know so we can give a count to the folks who are organizing. We used to have to work the whole 4 hours. Now they have so many volunteers. They are so well organized, just from 6 to 8 is when they need us. And of course, anytime you want to volunteer more, fabulous. Speaking of the Habitat for Humanity, I did speak at the breakfast on Tuesday morning, the 10th. And the 2 houses that we spent a little bit of time on are nearing completion. They're on Alexis Lane. All of those homes are Habitat homes, and two more families will be moving into our community. One of them will be a veteran family, and we're really excited to welcome these families to our community in these Habitat homes. And please continue to support Habitat as they help more people move along the journey into home ownership. We're very happy to be a proud partner with Habitat. I want to thank Councilor Anderson, who will be doing the welcome at the Oregon Employment Department WorkSource Veterans Conference on the 25th. You're going to be doing the welcome for that. And I want to thank Councilor Herrera for representing the council at the NAACP dinner this Saturday. So that is all I've got. So that will take us then to our other business. This time is provided to allow the mayor, city council members, or staff an opportunity to bring new or old matters before the council that are not on tonight's agenda. City manager.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Tracy.
I actually have something tonight. Just anyone that's interested in being on our distribution list for any of the city council agendas or committee agendas, there's a link on our website that you can sign up for those now. So, thank you.
Perfect. Tim?
Just another reminder, continue to conserve water so you can have a low sewer bill. Thanks.
Chief.
A couple of things. It was a busy week last week. People are aware that K9 Bruno died suddenly of septic, a systemic infection. It's probably the wrong word there, but anyway. Contrary-wise to that, a few of our cops, Lede, Wampler, and Farlson, entered a burning home and rescued a couple of kids. I'm not sure I'm too excited about the guys going into burning buildings, but you can't stop them sometimes. I appreciate that. Regarding donations for the K9, we've already received well more than enough to buy a new dog. You may recall, about a year ago, we were given a contribution towards cameras for the dogs. And if people are interested in donating for that, we'll use donations for those. They're remarkably expensive. Thank you.
And I just want to express to Officer Keniston and the entire police department, the canines are such important members of the police family, and our deep condolences to everyone who worked with Bruno, and our appreciation for all of the canines and their officer partners. You keep our community so much safer, and we deeply appreciate that.
Yeah, they do a good job. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bill.
Nothing tonight, thank you.
Nate.
Last Thursday, we had actually our kickoff meeting for the Transportation Growth Management, TGM Education Outreach Grant. We met with a representative from the TGM department or program, representative from Department of Land Conservation and Development, as well as the 2 representatives from OTAC, which is our consultant, which are going to begin our stakeholder interviews process. And so we're going to be scheduling these interviews for these consultants. Now, just so you know, OTAC is actually an international firm. They are well recognized, and they're very impressive in these kinds of transportation planning issues and trying to put context. And what we are doing in this process is looking at how other cities which have had to deal with their growth issues and what we can learn from other cities, and how they would apply directly here in our unique situation. So we'll be outreaching to everything from the neighborhood associations to the chamber, the home builders, the service organizations. All of these are going to be important, important inputs for information into this process. Though it's going to be a very discreet and kind of a very short effort, it is going to be, I think, very helpful and give the council some very good information to set the stage for the discussion about urban growth boundary. So that process, those interviews, I have not yet received the information from our consultants, but those will begin within the next few weeks. So hopefully before the holiday season is upon us. So you'll be hearing more about it, so stay tuned.
According to Costco, the holiday season has been upon us for about a month and a half.
Yes, I know,
So,
right.
Councilor Johnson.
Thank you, Chris. Nothing tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
All right, thank you very much. Okay, sign that. All right, that takes us to written communications, and I didn't have anything in my box tonight, so that will take us then to agenda input. On November 6th, 2017, we'll meet at 7 o'clock in regular session. November 13th, 5:45 work session. Do we yet have a topic? Not yet. Okay. We'll leave that on there and see if something develops that we need to fill in that slot. And then November 20th, 7 p.m. for council regular session. Is there anything else for the good of the order? Councilor Ryan.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I apologize. Two things really quick. Excuse me. I think it's important to note that on the suicide walk was extremely powerful, and it was their second year, and they tripled the amount of walkers. And so they did come to us. If you remember, they came to us and spoke, and they were so excited to see us this weekend. And so I hope that they come back, and maybe we can invite them back to share those numbers of success. And then I would be totally remiss if we did not mention the fact that several of us attended Colonel Dial's retirement, and I think that's really important to not leave out, because he is such a pillar in the community. He's someone who gives and gives and gives, and he's a foster family of, feels like hundreds, I don't know. But I know, of course, Madam, if you want to maybe speak to that, I know there were several of us there, and I don't want to forget that. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Yes, and congratulations, and thank you to Colonel Kevin Dial and his family for their service to our nation. And you are right, he's been a tremendous role model, not only to his own children, but to the men who have served, men and women who have served under him. He models character and dedication in everything he does. So very proud to have him as a member of our community and as a member of our armed services. Thank you. Anything else? The time is 9:08, and we are adjourned.